House meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the absence of the Secretary, Ms. Chickey, please call roll.
Absolutely. Mr. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Chick is here. Mr. Vazecki is absent with notice. Mr. Kuzno is probably late. Mr. Iaquinto.
Here.
Ms. Infante. Here. And Mr. Dwyer is absent with notice.
Thank you.
You have a form.
I make a motion we approve the agenda.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Iaquinto. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. First call to the public. Anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission may do so for 3 minutes. None tonight. No clarifications from the commissioners then. Correspondence, I received none. Correct, Ms. Bird? Thank you. There's no public hearings tonight. Reports of committees, Board of Trustees, Ms. Chick.
The board met March 27th. The board approved funding for the master plan review. The board also approved funds for repairs to the Catholic Church Horseshoe Lake Drain for the Northfield Church Road culverts that are collapsing. There was also discussion on the Washtenaw County Road Commission proposed tree removal work. The board will prepare a statement on its position. The board also listened to a presentation from Tetra Tech on the sewer service rate study they have been asked to perform. There will be continued discussion on the options presented. That's all I have.
Thank you. ZBA report, Mr. Kuzno.
No meeting was made. Thank you.
Thank you. Any staff report, Ms. Bird? None. Planning consultant, Mr. Lippens.
Just to reiterate, we're excited that the board authorized us to work on the master plan. It's something that Planning Commission was interested in pursuing. It also means that we can, in the zoning ordinance process, we'll have the ability to officially adopt the North Village Master Plan and the downtown plan, as well as look at the interchanges and all of the master plan topics parallel to the zoning ordinance. So when we get to the end of the zoning revision process, we can do so with the flexibility of having some visioning around the master plan. And I think it's really positive, excited that we're going to start that work.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation report, Mr. Iaquinto.
Thank you. We are having a cleanup this Saturday, the 7th of April, from 1 to 3 o'clock, starting at the Bark Park for an hour. We're going to kind of clean up some dog mess that's there, get things organized, address maintenance list as needed, and then move to the community garden, kind of do the same there. Total time would be from 1 to 3. Appreciate any volunteers or anyone that can come help us at any given point of time. If you have a half hour, whatever it is, we'll be, again, starting at the Bark Park at 1 and then moving to the community garden after we're done there. Thank you.
Thank you. Downtown Planning Group, Ms. Infante.
On March 26th, the DDA met. They did not have a quorum, but a great deal of most of the meeting focused on 75 Barker and ideas about how to pursue using that property, as well as just generally developing ideas for business downtown. So again, no official business, but a great deal of interest and excitement about downtown development.
Thank you. We'll go to item 10, unfinished business. A is further discussion on temporary specialty stores. Mr. Lippens.
Yeah, so we had some discussion on this last month, and I think we made a lot of progress, but I also heard that there were some issues we wanted to address, and I thought it would be good to have another discussion about it. Specifically, there was I think some talk about whether or not just kind of working on our old ordinance would capture some of the things that we really wanted to capture in this section. And specifically, Hamburg and Dexter were brought up as possible samples. So I pulled those. I think that they are local comparisons, so I think they're relevant for us to look at. And I included those in the packet. I also thought that I could kind of walk through the changes and some of the things that we talked about, and have kind of one more discussion about it so that we felt like we were comfortable with this section before we kind of moved on past it. Particularly because this is a section that we do want to adopt soon because of the fireworks issue. So if we can get this section kind of completed to a level that we're comfortable with, this might be, timing-wise, the reason why we send stuff to the board, because we want it to have time to be adopted in advance of the fireworks season, if that makes sense. So in terms of the changes, I think one of the things that I wanted to cover is when I looked at this and put some thought into it, related to that buffer. We talked about the 250-foot buffer. I think we agreed, there are consensus that it should be modified, but we talked about should it be specific, for different districts. And I kind of landed on, since I think we have another part of this text that says that you need to comply with setbacks, that it could just be eliminated. So rather than modifying it, I thought it was maybe something we should just take out. That is different. And then I wanted to make sure from an administration perspective that the way that I had laid out the language about a temporary certificate of occupancy and the ability of the Director of Public Safety to review the site and sketch plan for security and basically safety purposes, that read well and made sense to everybody. Those are both in item number 4. And I think the other ones are fairly straightforward. I did add except where on-street parking is permitted and removed congestion from what is now number 6, since I've suggested eliminating number 6. So we could start by taking comments on the revisions and then possibly look at the elements of the Dexter and Hamburg ordinances that maybe aren't included in the Northfield ordinance and talk about if there's anything that we want to pull in to our ordinance from that too.
Mr. Aquino.
So on page 26, under Christmas tree sales, so is that verbiage there something you're proposing, or is it Hamburg Township? Like under Christmas tree sales where it has location. So it'd be 3C. And it's Hamburg Township at the top.
Yeah.
That's a copy of what they're doing, right?
Yes. So in the revised memorandum for temporary specialty stores that's dated March 29th, I put that I have included in the second sentence, included samples from Hamburg Township and Dexter Township. And it's section 8.9 of the Hamburg Township ordinance and 3.06 of Dexter. And both of those samples are in your packet. So,
And it seems like they mirrored each other. Is that what I'm seeing?
Mr. Aquino, what are you referring to again?
It seems like Dexter and Hamburg kind of mirrored each other in those segments there. Is that what am I seeing that correctly?
yes.
Okay. As far as location for us, shall not be located in or adjacent to any developed residential area. So if you look at the downtown Hamlet area then, on Barker, where it has been taking place, which is in 75 Barker, then that would mean if that sentence was in there, we couldn't continue doing it there. Is that correct?
Yes,
And I
but-
know it's not in ours, but I'm just saying we wouldn't want a statement like that in it then. Is that correct?
Yes, I agree. I agree.
What page is this? Okay, all right, excellent. So it would be conducted in those districts then?
Right.
Okay.
And so Mr. Lippens indicated he removed because we originally had proposed, or he had proposed the 250 feet from any parcel that is zoned or used residential, so that's gone. Right.
Just want, again, I apologize, it's just confusing with the other ordinances there.
Right. Mr. Lippens, since we are talking about the other two attached, the Dexter and the Hamburg, maybe we can, I had a couple comments, and there may be some other comments from other commissioners or questions, but I noticed on these, really they didn't say fireworks. There's really, if you can look at it, interpret it that, other than saying a sidewalk or tent sale from Hamburg, really Dexter didn't reflect, really, nor did Hamburg reflect fireworks sales. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I was looking at, you know, there, as you, proposed in our second revision about the removal of the distance. I think that I'm in agreement with that, because Dexter reflects, shall not be located, and this only refers to Christmas tree sales, shall not be located in or adjacent to any developed residential area. But really, I guess it's kind of a reach for both of those townships to actually say that you could sell fireworks, because it's really not specified. Both of them specify like carnival or circus, sidewalk display, Christmas tree sales. So other than that, I really didn't see a lot of similarity, and actually we're giving probably more leeway than those two townships in what we're proposing, just so people listening know. And also that Dexter also can ask for a surety bond of $500 for removal or cleanup. It's a guarantee. It's to be a bond. It's returnable. That I would understand in reading their language. And I think Hamburg has something similar too. But I mean, I don't think we need to propose that language at this time, because that's something that we could always revisit. I mean, we haven't even done this yet, and I don't foresee it as being a problem, but just so that everyone knows in the future, if it does become a problem, there is an avenue to address that. But I'd like to give it the benefit of the doubt to start, that I don't foresee that being an issue. But am I correct about my look at those two ordinances, Mr. Lippens?
Yeah, the bond is something that we don't include that we could. Looking at the Hamburg example, and the Dexter example also has this, but we don't really have anything specific for events. The Dexter one mentions carnival or circus, which you could, loosely kind of interpret to other special events, but the Hamburg one talks about musical concerts or other transient entertainment. Also sporting and outdoor events, which I know the township does. I don't know if we need to specifically authorize those in the zoning ordinance, but the Hamburg one also has a list of conditions that could comply, or that could be used for issuing of any permit, adequate off-street parking, specifying the duration. These are things that I think we handled in other ways, but this is kind of a concise list. And the performance guarantee, which you mentioned.
Right.
So, I mean, there are I kind of like the flexibility that we were discussing and kind of opening it up to other types of sales. But I kind of wanted to point out what these ordinances do to see if we wanted to add anything.
Right. I agree with all that, and I think ours is more open, it covers more opportunities. Ms. Chick has a question.
I just have a comment. I think the one that we're looking at and proposing is addressing temporary specialty stores, and particularly regarding holiday sales. These two ordinances from Hamburg and Dexter are in general, I think, addressing other events and types of sales. The only holiday sale they actually reference is the Christmas tree sales in the Dexter zoning ordinance. Also, I'm noticing that the Dexter ordinance is back from 2011 and the Hamburg is 2009, so they might not have addressed these issues that we're looking at right now either, but there are some things we could probably borrow from them or look at and consider. I would not be in favor of a bonding process. What was the other one? Oh, sidewalk sales. I think we might want to, I don't know, would you do a separate ordinance for like sporting events and other issues not related to holiday sales? Is that what you're thinking? Or do you want to make them inclusive in the holiday effort that we're working at right now? I mean, we can make this bigger than what we started doing, but do you want to do separate? Or do you think that's a better idea? Or what are your thoughts?
I think that in terms of the subject matter we're dealing with, it's similar subject matter. So we're talking about a temporary event, temporary permits. So, it could be a separate heading, but it could go here. So I don't know. I think if we want to add these types of things, this is an appropriate place to do it.
My thought, Ms. Chick, on that is that, I mean, we came up with a definition too on what we're trying to address. So I don't think we would actually probably have to change the definition or change the heading if we were to expand it from here. But I don't think it becomes an issue with some other related. And I don't know for sure because I haven't looked that up yet in our ordinance. I mean, it may be addressed in our ordinance otherwise, but I'm comfortable with what we're dealing with the temporary holiday sales personally. Okay, thank you. Ms. Infante?
I guess my only question is, are we going to have the fees indicated, or is there going to be a separate sheet of list of fees?
We don't determine what the fees are.
Right.
We're saying that fees should be, that's an administrative issue really, and the Board of Trustees approves the fee schedule, so
Okay.
I don't think we need to specify that, so that's my thought.
Yeah,
Ms.
no,
Chick?
that is true. In reference to the fees, I did bring it up at the last board meeting that we were looking at this, and that there was a suggestion to start looking at the fees, not just this, but our fees in general. And we were going to put that on a future agenda, so it will be addressed, but it is the board that sets the fees.
Thank you. Mr. Kuzno?
All right. Do we have some sort of standard for what we expect the cleanup to be for this temporary thing? And if not, could we make reference to, if we're not going to post a bond, can we just make a reference that costs incurred to clean up after you're done with your event? If you haven't finished up, if you haven't cleaned up properly, then somebody has to clean it up, and we'll have to back charge them somehow. Is there any way to even address that, do you think, or at least have a standard for what we expect it to be, so that we can at least call them up and say, you haven't quite done your job yet?
Mr. Lippens, maybe you can help address that. I mean, I don't know other than actually collecting a bond, you know, to guarantee a cleanup. But I don't, like I said, we haven't had a problem so far, and I don't foresee a problem, but I mean, it can always be added on if need be. But what have you seen, or can you help in answering that, Mr. Lippens?
I think that you could basically have a requirement that the site be restored to its normal condition.
Something simple like
You
that,
know-
that kind of spells it out.
Right, and if you don't have a bond, then the question is, how do you guarantee that? And it would just be through normal enforcement procedures. You know, maybe during the inspections that we're requiring, you take a photo of the previous condition. If there's some egregious damage, you know, you notify the applicant that they've
Well, what's the likely scenario for these things to happen anyway? Let's say it's a fireworks guy. He finds a vacant lot, calls up some guy that owns that vacant lot, and says, I'd like to sell fireworks on your property, right? So the property owner is the guy that's ultimately on the hook, even though he's leasing it temporarily to some guy. Isn't that usually how it's going to go? I mean, or else that property owner takes the initiative and says, I want to sell fireworks this year on my vacant lot over here, right? I mean,
Correct.
we need to look at it that way in terms of who it is who's the owner and who's the salesperson, or it could be this is also, you know, it could be a store that wants to do a holiday sale that's outside, right? A tent sale. Didn't we talk about that? It's the same thing. Does a tent sale
Correct.
fall in the same category?
In certain zonings.
Right. So it could be the actual property owner that's doing the sale, or it could be a property owner that is leasing it to somebody temporarily to do their sale thing. I'm just trying to figure out who would be responsible for the final.
Well, I can maybe help with that. I mean, ultimately, an enforcement person could ultimately go to the owner. Preferably, you'd want the user or the person doing it to be responsible, but the owner is the ultimate person
Right.
that would be responsible.
Right.
But I want to also point out in paragraph 7, it says that all signs, lights, poles, wires, or other items in connection therewith shall be removed. So I'm looking at that like that's pretty inclusive of everything that the person's going to put out there, whether it's somebody renting the space or the owner,
Yeah.
in my mind. But I mean, you have a good point. Mr. Aquino?
Three things. One, I was going to mention that in relation to that, if it's the property owner, it's his own issue he's dealing with, right? Then we go through the blight. Then we go through the blight situation and fine him, or however we have to. If he leases it out and he doesn't police his own property, again, that's back to his issue because he's leasing it out,
Yep.
right? I mean,
Yep.
I don't want to get ordinance crazy with us in the same perspective because people have to assume their own responsibility, right? Same in paragraph 7, we need to, I believe, include the word then that's crossed off before December. So it would say, shall be removed from said property no later than 3 days following, because the then's crossed
Correct.
off. So
Yep.
that should be included
Nope.
still.
Include the then.
Yep.
And then also, I see that in the other municipality examples, they have a 45-day period. And so I wanted to throw that out there and I looked at as an example for Kiwanis Christmas tree sales, 30 days this year is right on the cusp. It's right on 30 days. Some years it may or may not work. So I counted them, the 30. So I'm just throwing that out there for discussion.
Right. We were just using best judgment when we discussed this last meeting. I see the 45 days for Christmas sales, and probably out of the holiday sales, that's probably the longest use period. I mean, so if you go 45 days, then you could apply that to fireworks. So you're starting to sell them in mid-June, or excuse me, in May. So that to me would seem excessive. So I'm kind of happy with 30, but
Well,
that's
you can
just my
spell it out.
opinion. Mr. Kuzno?
The Dexter one gives specific, Christmas tree, 45 days, sidewalk to sale, 90 days, carnivore circus, 10 days. We can give specific number of days if we want. I'm just throwing it out there as it can be done.
Mr. Aquino?
I mean, and again, if we're all in agreement, 30 days, it's fine. Again, it works this time, and I know it would have worked last year, but, so, we just make sure people address it and follow through with it, or if they feel they need longer, they can apply for 2, couldn't they? I'm just throwing that out there. There's
I don't
nothing
know.
that says they couldn't, right?
There's no restriction on the
back.
amount of times, but that could lead to another issue, because you could have year-round sales of fireworks or what have you. So Mr. Lippens might want to comment on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at where we put those limits in to see if we, total number,
I'm seeing it number 4, paragraph 4.
yep.
Would that include the setup and the takedown, or is that 3 days before and 3 days after the 30 days?
I think it would include, it's the length of your whole permit, basically.
Certificate.
Yeah. I don't think we specified here that you cannot get 2 consecutive permits, but I think that would be, the intent would be that your permit was for the event, and that by saying it shall not exceed 30 days, it means that sale that's related to that event would not go longer. So I'm not opposed to looking at extending. I think 30 days is okay, but I would read this as the intent is know that you can't, continually get permits for temporary sales.
Another point too would be regarding Ms. Chick's question, the 3 days don't have to be part of the 30 days. The sale ends at the holiday, and they have 3 days to get it cleaned up.
Same
I
thing
think
with
that-
the setup? I mean,
Well, what I'm saying is that the 30 calendar days, I would put it prior to the event or the holiday, and our language says, and the sales would stop at that point, but they have 3 days to remove what they set up. To me, I guess I'm kind of implying that, but I mean, it's a real working scenario to me. Do you agree, Mr. Lippens?
Well, we've said the date of required removal shall be specified, and it cannot be longer than 3 days following the specified holiday's occurrence. So I guess the question is, does that mean you have 33 days or 30 days? And those 3 days are inclusive. I would say that the 30 days is your total length on site, and that includes your 3 days. So you would be able to get a permit 27 days before the holiday if you required 3 days for removal. I suppose someone could say, I'm going to remove everything the day after the holiday, I don't need those 3 days, and that would be fine. But,
Ms. Chick?
I don't want to belabor the point, but Christmas sales typically start right after Thanksgiving. Fireworks sales usually start in June and through the 4th, and that's longer than 30 days.
yeah,
Mr. Aquino?
so, and again, I'm just relating to one event, because it's an event that one of the nonprofit groups does in town. And so that's the Kiwanis. So if you look at a calendar for this year as an example, Kiwanis typically set up and they go get the trees the weekend before, and they have them there in the building, right? And then they commence the sales on the Friday, which is the 23rd of Thanksgiving. So then 23rd, 24th, 25th, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 30 days ends on the 22nd. And that doesn't include them still going ahead and doing the cleanup. So I'm just,
How many days is that total then for them?
because again, you do the setup, if they do the setup the weekend before where the tree, they get it set up, it would be like 40 days.
The weekend before Thanksgiving, so like the 16th.
I mean, I'm just, and again, if we tell groups they gotta comply by this, then they comply by it. But I'm just giving an example of what's been done in the past, since I've been one of the individuals doing the setup and then working through the whole event. So I'm just giving that as an example. We make the decisions here, so, but I just want to point that out as an example.
It's a good point. Mr. Lippens, can there be can we put an addendum in there just for Christmas trees?
Yeah, well, so we could easily, in that paragraph, say Christmas sales may be permitted to have a maximum of 45 days. When you think about these numbers, it's pretty much 45 days from the Friday before Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve.
Okay, so you'd be adding that in paragraph 4 after the sentence about the total duration of a temporary certificate of occupancy. Am I correct?
You are correct. So there will
Okay.
be an additional sentence that says
Okay.
Christmas tree sales shall not exceed 45 calendar days.
Would that work, Mr. Aquino?
Yeah, I mean, the terminology we used was Christmas, so we can just use the same terminology. We don't have to say trees, because that way it's open for Christmas
sales.
Christmas sales.
Christmas
right?
sales. Everybody agree with that? Yes, Mr. Kuzno?
Well, in that number 4, it seems like the certificate of occupancy is related to the sales period. It doesn't refer to setup or takedown, so it really, I agree with what you're saying, but I think that it didn't matter if it took a week to get your trees here and get them set up, as long as you're not selling them before your C of O starts, you might be okay, but adding language doesn't hurt either.
Any other comments? I do have, I have a list. I have a lot of highlights, Mr. Lippens. It's just wordsmith stuff, but concept-wise, it's not a big change.
Yeah, that's why I thought we should spend some more time on it.
Yeah.
Because I want the commission to be happy with this when we send it. And like I
Right.
said, this one we expect to be sent, even if we hold some other stuff down, or back, this would be something we want to send. Yeah.
Are you suggesting that we send this tonight?
No,
Because I'm not comfortable, I could tell you right now. I'd like to see another final copy that's clear and concise, if that's okay.
it's okay. Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
suggesting tonight, but I thought it was worth another discussion.
Right.
So, because the next time you see it, we might be discussing something else.
That's fine.
But you might be reviewing this,
Yeah,
right?
but I think we would have it very solid at that point.
Yep.
But is there any other conceptual issues that some of the commissioners want to, Ms. Infante?
This is conceptual. What we're obviously trying to do is create an ordinance that is concise and allows flexibility, but is not so vague that it could become abused. I think the language in Dexter and Pinckney is a bit excessive, but is there a phrase or a way of using language so that we can almost on a case-by-case basis, allow, say for the Christmas trees, that you have up to 30 days unless otherwise determined by? In other words, is there some sort of phrasing? And I see some of it in the Dexter language, within or up to, or they use, so that you can give people room for an argument, like the trees didn't come in time, can there be a little flexibility? I mean, so we can just be one-on-one, but not overburden the people who are, issuing these certificates, for example.
In my opinion, the difference between ours and Dexter's and Hamburg's is that theirs is specified only by 3 or 4 specific times or occasions or sales times, whatever you want to say, and ours is more general and it's inclusive of more holidays. And I think adding the sentence that we devised, that we just spoke about, would probably suffice for the Christmas part. But that is a difference between the copies from Hamburg and Dexter to ours. And like I said, I'm comfortable with ours. I think it's more inclusive than theirs. And Mr. Lippens, or would you have any further comment about that, about Ms. Infante's question?
I think that, one of the issues with the previous language was that it only applied to Christmas, and that was not flexible enough to do these types of events at other times of the year. And, so the intent is to be, to allow some flexibility, and I certainly think if you have some suggestions that we could add to it. But by saying it shall not be, the 30-day limit, it could be less than that. So rather than saying, for instance, in the Dexter one, they have tent sales, maximum for tent sales is 7 days. Well, if you have a tent sale, if it's associated with even a non-defined holiday sale, it can be up to 30 days. So you've got more flexibility with that.
I mean, I think that answers I just want to make sure that it's clear that there is flexibility for people, that they understand that we're not getting litigious here.
There is.
And maybe there isn't a phrase that is typical for that.
Ms. Chick?
In one of the other communities, ordinances, it addresses sidewalk sales. We don't specifically address sidewalk sales in our effort here. Do we want to, or is it pretty much covered under, including limits of hours of operation, site access, site circulation, and other measures to ensure safe operation of temporary sales?
So
Do we have to be specific to sidewalk sales?
I don't think that we do. One of the things that I think address that is that these are not accessory uses. And what I mean by that is if you had a storefront and customarily did sidewalk sales in front of that, I would look to that to be something that was part of your normal operations. And it wouldn't look to this part of the ordinance specifically to authorize that type of a sale. Unless, and we did talk about this when we talked about Tractor Supply last month, and saying that they might do some outdoor sales that were accessory to that use. That would be a part of a different approval process. But if it is a special sale, we would look to this. So I don't think we have anything that would prohibit someone doing a holiday sale as a sidewalk sale in this, or a tent sale. We also opened it up so it could also be a temporary sale in a structure, provided that structure met occupancy, it was inspected. So yeah, I don't think we need to specifically say sidewalk, but we could add that.
I have a comment. My opinion is, I don't feel comfortable including sidewalks in this language when you're talking the period of time that we're talking about, 45 days or 30 days.
Oh, okay.
That being the difference. I agree with Mr. Lippin's take on it, that if it's accessory to the use, that may work. But when you, this is quite a long time frame, and I don't feel a sidewalk sale would fit. That's just my opinion. Anyone else?
Well, if you're
Mr.
silly
Kuzma?
enough to leave your goods on the sidewalk for 45 days, you're just like, seller beware.
Right. Ms. Chick?
No, I guess I was thinking of, just a question. Like, we used to have a Meet on Main event, and I'm thinking if somebody wanted to have like a craft show, if the township decided, not the township, but the people in the township decide they want to have a craft sale, and they want to do it on the sidewalks or in the community park, how, there would be an event scheduled for like a weekend. Do they have to go through all the permitting uses and things like that?
It's not a holiday, though, per
No,
se.
No,
That being the difference.
okay, but so they just could?
Mr. Lippens might have something more. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we had some other language in the downtown district regarding, I know it was signs for sure,
Yes, I-
things on the sidewalk. So, and I'm not versed on it right now without
Okay.
looking at it, but Mr. Lippens might be able to help answer your question, though.
Well, so this is why, for one reason why I suggested we have a similar holidays provision. And I forgot to mention that I was asked to add a definition, which is included in the new language under A. But one of the things that I think about generalizing this is by having a definition. In this case, it says recognized day of festivity or recreation in which by custom or law, activities, especially business or work, including school, are suspended or reduced. I think this opens up to like things like Harvest Festival or things like that that are customary activities or events that you might want to organize multiple vendors around. And, you know, so on a case-by-case basis, having a definition that's slightly more flexible, we could trigger this part of the ordinance to do that. The other thing, I mean, I was mentioning that Dexter and Hamburg had some provisions for like special events, and I just wanted to mention that I did look through the Code of Ordinances, and there is a chapter on assemblies, but it's in the general Code of Ordinances. So there is procedures in Northfield Township to deal with that type of thing too. So it's possible that community-wide events that were organized could be done under the assemblies part of the Code of Ordinances, which is not zoning, but the township board, you know, could update that for any special events as well that we were not including in this language.
Thank you. Are you good with that, Ms. Chick?
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other concept ideas? No? If there isn't any, Mr. Lippens, I'd like to just go through and I'll just tell you what I saw and what I think, and we can discuss it, I guess.
Great.
Are you going to send this to so when we're done with this, will this go as a memorandum, temporary specialty stores to the Board of Trustees? When really it should be temporary holiday sales, and I think I mentioned that at the last meeting. Just the main title. So that was one thing, and there's only a couple other things on the first page. It's all in paragraph 3.
Okay.
A zoning compliance review application. I think we want to remove the word review. It'll be just a zoning compliance application because it's consistent throughout that way with your last paragraph in 7 or last sentence in number 7, you know. Excuse me. What I meant was, yeah, remove review and make it capitalized zoning compliance application.
That should be capitalized.
Correct. Second sentence, unless holiday sales are accessory to the principal use of the site. There again, temporary certificate of occupancy should be capitalized because that's what's also in the last paragraph in 7. And then the last sentence in 3, such temporary certificate of occupancy capitalized shall be issued after an inspection of the proposed sale site is made by the building official, and you have and/or, and I thought we discussed it might be good that both the building official and the director of public safety or their representatives inspect the site. So I kind of got clouded on that on this version, but my suggestion is, so in other words, it would be is made by the building official and the director of public safety or their representative, period. And the reason I'm saying or a designated township representative, I don't think you want it to be somebody that's not either the director of public safety or the building official. Because someone could read that as, okay, well, send the ordinance officer over there, and that's not, I don't think that's what we were trying to accomplish. And then on the next page, number 4, the first sentence, such use and occupancy shall be temporary and shall not, we have adversely impact adjacent surrounding properties. I think the term, or that part of that sentence, adversely impact adjacent surrounding properties, is subjective to people. And I think it should just be not cause a nuisance, period. Because that is a defined term in the ordinance, whereas adversely impacting it's wide open. That's my opinion, anyway.
Can you tell me where that is again? I was still making notes.
First sentence of paragraph 4.
Okay.
Instead of adversely impact adjacent and surrounding properties, just say not cause a nuisance, period. And then the second sentence, temporary certificate of occupancy in caps. Of course, we're adding the sentence that we spoke about earlier in number 4 also about
Yep, I got that one. 45
okay.
days.
Yes, and then okay, the sentence that to the extent any proposed sale items may be regulated by the state of Michigan as with fireworks, all licenses or permits must be obtained and presented to the township for review with it should be zoning compliance application in caps. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the last thing that I saw would be in number 5. Storage and display area shall be within the minimum setback requirements for the district in which it should be temporary holiday sale is located, not outdoor.
Yep, I like that.
Okay. That's all I have. Is there any questions or any others find issue? Is that good, Mr. Lippens? I mean, do you have them all? I could always get
Yep, no, I have them all, and at this point, I can circulate the revised to you, and before it goes into the next packet.
Great. Yeah, I just want to be clean and done with it. So that's my goal.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay.
think this was a valuable discussion. I wanted to make sure we didn't rush through this and had something everyone's comfortable with.
I agree. I'm comfortable. Any other commissioners have a different opinion? No? Okay. So we'll look to have that in the next packet then, right, Mr. Lippens?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 11, new business, there is none. Everyone received minutes from March 21st.
Make a motion to approve the minutes with dispensement of reading.
I support that. Any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Final call to the public. Anyone wishing to address the planning commission? No? Comments from the commissioners. Mr. Kuzno.
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
What's the status on the proposals for the North
Village.
Village piece?
We have posted responses to questions. I think at the last meeting I mentioned we had some written questions. We've summarized, today summarized the results of the Q&A session we held here. Those may have been posted today, I haven't checked, but if not, they'll be posted tomorrow.
Posted on the website?
On the township website.
Okay.
Yep. And the response date, I believe, is April 21st, but I can check because I have those documents here. If you give me a second, I can go to the schedule. Nope, I was wrong. It's the responses are due to the township on May 16th. So we still have some time. I believe the township also has advertised on the ULI webpage, which is National Urban Land Use Institute for many developers look at the site, and ULI is holding their national conference this year in Detroit. That's happening soon. So it was an opportunity for us to possibly reach out to some national developers as they come and look at our region as well. So we're hoping we get some hits off that. And yeah, we'll keep you posted, but we're waiting for that day. We would also take questions if people contact us between now and then as well. But
So the May date is the actual submission
Submittal
of
date.
proposals?
yep.
Okay.
All set?
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Aquino? None tonight? Ms. Chick?
I just have, there was a news release that the Washington County Road Commission has rejected the grant to remove the trees along North Territorial and also on Mass Road. And due to public comment, they're going to rethink their methods in regard to how to advise the township and the public, and look for public input first before they make a big decision like that.
I have no comment. Ms. Infante? Okay. I'd like to announce the next regular meeting, April 18th, and
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll support that. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.